But I'm going to go over the timeline. Let's go over the timeline, okay? So this is going to all put it together. And if you look at this, notice how symmetrical everything is. You can already tell by what I put on here that everything is very precise and very symmetrical. By the way, this timeline is to scale. I did this with the ruler, and everything is up to scale. So there is no estimation in between these timelines. It is exactly according to the scale. So let's say the tribulation. There's a starting point of when the tribulation is supposed to begin. Let's say it's that point right there, okay? And how long is the tribulation supposed to be? It's supposed to be 2,520 days or 7 years, according to Book of Daniel and Book of Revelation. Where did I get that? Just from those two books. So so I have it here. So it's a 3.5 years in the first half, and then 3.5 years. It's 1,260 days each, and you multiply that times 2, and it becomes 2,520 days. Okay, so those are 7-year period. Okay, and in Book of Daniel, chapter 8, verse 14, it talks about this 2,300-day period from when the daily sacrifice stops to the host trodden. And here's a verse that says it. We'll read it here. Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint which spake, how long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation or abomination, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot? So meaning the sanctuary, the temple at the end, or it doesn't even have to be physical temple, but the temple grounds, and the host to be trodden under. Host meaning army of God, or the Christians or Israelites, whoever, to be kind of be persecuted. How long? And then it says, he said unto me, unto 2,300 days. So 2,300 days. So there are 4 things in here, but there's only one answer here. It says, and then shall the sanctuary be cleansed, right? After 2,300 days, the sanctuary will be cleansed. So that's when Jesus comes back. So that it refers to the end, to the Armageddon, the second coming. And then, so there's a few things: the daily sacrifice, the abomination, and the sanctuary being trodden, and the army, God's people being trodden. So there are 4 things, but there's only one time period here, right? So it's talking about from the daily sacrifice to the host trodden, okay? And that is going to be 2,300 days. So if we backtrack this from 2,520, it becomes, okay, we'll do that a little later. Okay, and then the next key verse is in Daniel chapter 12, verse 11. It says, and from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that makes desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days. So there's 1,290 days from the daily sacrifice to the abomination. Okay, so we have a frame of reference, the daily sacrifice. We have 2 time points of daily sacrifice. So we can use, you can see on the screen the time periods here. So we know when the abomination will be from when the daily sacrifice stops. Okay, so then if you do the math, if you do the subtraction and do the math, it becomes 220 days from the start of the tribulation is when the daily sacrifice is supposed to stop. And this is very nicely foretold in Ezra 8:20. Ezra 8:20 says this, also of the Nethinims, whom David and the princes had appointed for the service of the Levites, there were 220 Nethinims. All of them were expressed by name. So these guys were part of the Levites that were going to serve in the second temple as they were returning from Babylonian captivity. So they have, in the book of Ezra, it describes every single one of them, okay, by name and the group they belong to. And these Nethinims were the ones that were in charge of doing the sacrifice. And they were exactly 220 of them, okay? So even though this scripture is about how many of them were there, 220 of them, I believe this ties in very exactly with the days, 220 days of the Nethinims who were in charge of the daily sacrifice. It's very, very, very amazing to see this. And in Abomination, very similar too. If you look at Abomination of Desolation timing, if you calculate this out, it comes out to be 1,510 days from the time of the commencement of the tribulation. This is also foretold nicely in Ezra chapter 8, 2 to 14. And if you, I'm not going to read it because it's too long, but it lists I believe it's the Levites or the group, the Israelites that were returning from captivity, from Babylonian captivity, and it names all these different groups of people and all the how many there were in each group. And if you add all of them up, guess what? It adds up to exactly 1,510. So these Babylonian captivity people, the Israelites that were returning, God like tells us exactly how many there are, but they correlate perfectly to how many days that are in this timeline. And it's not an accident, I don't think, because it's talking about the Levites. It's talking about the holy people that are supposed to serve in the temple. And this is a time of where the temple is involved. And so it correlates. And so then there's another piece that is not mentioned by most end time prophecy or teachers is that the Daniel chapter 8 verse 14 can also be reversed. That 2,300 days can be reversed from host trodden to the abomination, okay? And when it says to give or cleanse a sanctuary, when you reverse that, that's the key verse over there. And Leland Jones, he's the one that figured this out. And when you do this, right, guess what? When you backtrack this time, it also is a host trodden period where the 9th of Av, it becomes minus 790 days from start of the tribulation, and it becomes the 9th of Av, which is a significant date in Israel's history because that's when all the bad things that happened to Israel happened. And many, many things in history, you can look that up. So what happened at that date? What happened at that date? Okay, we'll review that in a little bit. Okay, so from the 9th of Av to when the daily sacrifice occurs, or when it gets stopped, it's exactly 1,010 days. And from when Abomination of Desolation to the Armageddon, that's 1,010 days again. And in between, I thought would be 1,010, but it wasn't. It's actually 1,290 days, okay? But if you minus 1,010, it becomes 1,010 plus 280 days. And we know that 280 days is exactly 40 weeks in gestational period. And I went over this before, that Jesus in his first coming, he came right at 38 weeks, not a day soon, not a day late, right at 38 weeks. But in the second coming, for some reason, including the feast of the Lord timing, everything is in 40 weeks. So full-term baby gestation is normally from 38 weeks to 40 weeks. So 38 to 40 weeks is considered normal. So in Christ's first coming, he came at 38 weeks. On his second coming, it's gonna be 40 weeks because he wants to give the maximum time for that one last soul to be saved and still be within that full-term gestation. So we're going through this birthing pain, but he wants to give it the full last day, last moment for people to be saved. So this is the reason why I believe it's 40 weeks. So then we had exactly 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. Isn't that amazing? And I'll tell you what that means in a little bit. So then there's a, if you count 1335 days from day 0 of start of the tribulation, guess what? It becomes a Pentecost. Isn't that amazing? It becomes a Pentecost. Daniel chapter 12, verse 12. We just read that, right? Blessed is he that waited, cometh to 1,305 and 30 days. 1,335 days. And let me do the calculation here, Pentecost calculation. How do we arrive at this, okay? That's because on 1,260 days is the Passover, okay? 1,260 mark is a Passover, okay? So if you subtract 1335 minus 1,260 is 75 days. Wait a minute. It's not 75. It should be 50 days, right? When during the Passover time after the resurrection. If you count from the first fruit, the resurrection Sunday, and then to Pentecost, it's exactly 50 days. But wait a minute. If you do 1335 minus 1,260, it's 75. So we have additional 25 days. Where is the additional 25 days coming from? Well, that's because according to the Enoch calendar, where the Bible timing is based on, there are additional 4 days to the calendar. So if you multiply 1,260 days times 4, which is represented by 3.5 years, you multiply that, you get additional 14 days. And then if you add a leap year into it, leap year of those 3.5 years, you have to add 7 days, okay? Then if you add 14 plus 7 is exactly 21 days. And then 4 days, you have to add another 4 days, then it becomes 25. I forgot what the 4-day was. I know. Wait a minute. I think that has oh, I know. Okay. So from Passover to first fruits is additional 4 days. That's what it is. Okay. So if you add that from Passover to Pentecost is exactly 1335. It arrives at that. Okay. So this is it's not everybody can figure this out. Okay. But with the help of some other Bible teachers and me also looking into this, is exactly what it is. So 1,260 days from tribulation is the Passover. 1335 represents the Pentecost. So when is Pentecost this year? Okay, so the feast, the tribulation, if we count, let's assume for a moment, and this is a big assumption, that Revelation 12 sign was the beginning of tribulation, the Feast of Trumpets, back in 2017, which happened on September 22nd, 2017, okay? And so there's a lot of people that agrees with that. And let's just say, I'm not saying with 100% certainty, but let's just say that that's what it is. If you have a starting point like that, then you have all the dates figured out here. Then the 9th of Av becomes July 25th, 2015. Do you know what happened back then? That's when they had the largest satanic worship service occurred in Detroit, Michigan. okay, with the Baphomet statue, okay? I'll show you the statue picture later, okay? And then the daily sacrifice, it ends on April 30th of 2018. What happened at that time? Well, that's when Prime Minister Netanyahu actually declared war, unofficial war on Iran, and then the daily sacrifice is not. So the daily sacrifice doesn't have to be like sacrificing every day. Okay, so the term daily sacrifice is talking about description of a lamb that's supposed to be sacrificed in the evening and the morning, along with some grain, some oil and wine, and that is the description of the daily sacrifice. So they had been starting to do the daily sacrifice for the first time in like 2,000 years. Ever since the temple was destroyed, they started doing it. Guess what? In 2018, they made the altar. So you don't have to have a temple to do the daily sacrifice. You only need the altar. So they were doing it up until the pandemic started. So the daily sacrifice stopped completely during the pandemic. But that's when it began. And then the Passover is supposed to be according 1260 days, it should have been March 6th, but it's not, because if you do the 25-day compensation, it becomes 27th, and that's when the Passover was. So it correlates perfectly. And then the Pentecost just happened 2 days ago, 1335. Okay, it was just 2 days ago. Today is the 21st, right? Isn't that amazing? It just happened 2 days ago. And then the abomination supposed to occur this November, and then the Armageddon supposed to be in 2024. If Revelation 12 sign is the day zero of the tribulation. And you might say, well, what about pre-trib rapture? Well, who said that it was pre-trib only? It could also be pre-great trib rapture, because the tribulation is broken up in two sections, right? The time of relative ease, and then the latter half being the great tribulation. So it could be the rapture before the great tribulation. And then there's a ominous super blood moon that is about to occur next week on the 26th. And this super blood moon is just really amazing. I'm going to go over this in a little bit. So if you look at this, there is a period of 7 days from May 19th to May 26th. And I believe this could correlate with the 7 days that Noah was preparing to enter the ark. God told him when exactly it was going to rain, but he didn't tell him until 7 days before. And so this could be it. This could be the 7-day waiting period before something happens on May 26th. And in book of Revelation, chapter 18, verse 23, there is a very peculiar verse that I wanted to share with you guys. It says, "And the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. For thy merchants were the great men of earth, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived." This is talking about the mystery Babylon riding on the dragon, and she holds this golden cup in her hand, and in that cup is the sorcery by which all nations are deceived. And if you look up this sorcery in the original Greek, it says, guess what? It says pharmakia, meaning medicine, pharmakia. So at the end time, through medicine, through pharmakia, all nations will be deceived. Isn't that amazing what's happening in our world right now with the pandemic, with the vaccine and everything? I think it just fits so perfectly. So what does 1010 mean? You know, I told you there's 1010, 3 1010s. So I looked it up, and it means pretty much God. 1010 means God, Alpha and Omega, even salvation. And then I typed it, I looked at it 1010 3 times, right? And it looked like a binary code to me. So guess what? I Googled it. I Googled the binary code to find out the meaning of that binary code. And guess what the meaning is? The meaning is warning. 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10 in binary code literally means warning. God is warning us. And then I came across this presentation about a week and a half ago, actually, and I thought it was amazing. And remember the story of Joseph, where Pharaoh had a dream about the 7 fat cows, and 7 lean cows, and the 7 healthy grain, and the 7 dried up grains, and nobody could interpret it except Joseph. And Joseph told him that this is a dream about 7 years of plenty and the coming 7 years of famine. And as a result of this, Pharaoh made him his right-hand man. He became the ruler. By the way, they think that Joseph in Egypt was known as the infamous Imhotep. But anyways, so Imhotep created all these silos to store the grains, and you can see these silos with grains from that period still left over in that area. So anyways, so Pharaoh assigns him to be in charge of Egypt pretty much, and because of this dream and explanation, and that's exactly what happened. And this is what is about to occur. 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. 7 years of tribulation about to occur with 7 years of plenty. And so the next thing is it's pretty astounding. So I told you there's a super blood moon occurring May 26th, which is next week, okay? And so this is a 7 year of plenty and 7 years of famine and diagram based on the signs in the heavens. Okay, so it really started with the 4 tetrad blood moons in 2014, okay? And so 7 years from 2014 is this year, 2021, and then 7 years from that is 2028, where this timeline ends, okay? And so if you make this super blood moon the center point, and you look at the signs in the heavens, everything is so symmetrical. So let's talk about the full solar eclipses. So on this diagram, there are 2 types of eclipses: the full solar eclipses, not the partial ones, the full solar eclipses, and the blood moons. Okay, so we're not going to talk about the blood moons other than the fact that it started the timeline back in 2014 with the tetrad. Okay, so let's go back from May 26th of next week, and the nearest full solar eclipse that occurred was December 14, 2020, during Hanukkah, okay? During Hanukkah, okay? So if you look at Hanukkah of this year, it happens again. The full solar eclipse happens again in Hanukkah, so it's symmetrical. And then the one before that was in July 2nd, 2019, another full solar eclipse, which is exactly 694 days from May 26th. And if you fast forward the exact same amount of days, it arrives at another full solar eclipse on April 20th, 2023. And the one previous to this full solar eclipse was March 9th, 2016. And if you calculate the days, it comes out to be 1,904 days to May 26th. And if you fast forward into the future, there is another full solar eclipse on August 12, 2026. And the one previous to March 9th is March 20th, 2015, with 2,259 days. And you can see the obvious pattern here, right? And there is another the full solar eclipse that I didn't mention, which occurred in August 21st, 2017, which was called the Great American Eclipse because it went across from northwest to the southeast part of the United States. That was a Great American Eclipse that occurred. Guess what? Another Great American Eclipse will occur symmetrically in the future in April 8th, 2024, crossing from Texas to the northeast area, making an X, like as if God wants to make a mark with an X, you know. And so when you look at this, you know this is not happening by accident. In fact, I calculated the probability of this happening by chance. It has so there's so full solar eclipses occur 1 in every 18 months. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 solar eclipses. So if you multiply 18 times 5, 5 times, you have the probability of how often this can occur by chance. It comes out to be 1 in 1.89 million. So you have 1 in 1.89 million chance of this occurring by chance. So you know this is not happening by chance. So everything is centering around next week's super blood moon. I don't know if that's going to be the rapture. I don't know if that's going to be the start of the Great Tribulation, but it kind of sounds like it from the 7 years of plenty to 7 years of famine, which is a foreshadowing of the end times. It kind of all fits. It kind of all fits. So I don't know where the rapture fits in here, but it's all, I mean, it's an amazing time to be alive. We're witnessing everything unfolding right before our eyes. So I had, in the remaining time, I have some proof of what I was talking about. So the Passover of this year is going to be March 27, which I showed you on the timeline, and then even earlier this month, Israeli government surrendered the Temple Mount to the Arabs, and they quoted this Daniel chapter 12 verse 11 that we talked about just now. And I told you about Revelation 12 signing the past. And then here's a Baphomet statue that they used to blaspheme God. Had the largest satanic worship gathering back in July 25th of 2015, which fits perfectly with the 9th of Av that I talked about. And here's the altar that they built for the first time in Israel's history in 2,000 years. They dedicated this at the temple grounds. So you don't have to have a physical temple to offer daily sacrifices. So a lot of prophecy teachers are hung up on it. They're like, oh, we don't have the third temple, so you cannot stop the daily sacrifice. No, that's not true. Daily sacrifice has been going on in Israel until the pandemic. And again, this is talking about the daily sacrifice. And there it is. In April 5th of 2017, they talked about in modern first, Passover sacrifice would take place in Old City. So they restarted this all the way back in 2017. And they've been arresting people who are doing this. And here's a picture of them doing the daily sacrifice on the Temple Mount. And again, and then on April 30th of 2018, Prime Minister Netanyahu declared unofficial war with Iran. And so here's my my final slide with the timeline. And I'm not going to go over everything here. I'm just going to point out the fact that different scenarios correlate. The most common scenario that correlates is is consistent with the super blood moon next week. If you look at the green rows, May 26, 2021, correlates with 1948 founding of nation Israel, and then a birthday of Jesus on 4 BC. So that's the one that correlates most on this timeline that I figured out. So it is consistent. What I'm saying is that my various calculations that I've done in the past 2 years correlates perfectly with the coming supermoon next week. So I'm just astonished at what is about to occur. And if I'm not saying that the rapture will be that date, I'm just saying that's a significant date. It could be the start of the Great Tribulation. But anyways, that's all I got for today. And